In this video, we're going to learn how to divide rational expressions. So when you divide with fractions, you can't actually divide fractions. So instead, you want to multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to keep this first part. We're going to be changing this to multiplication, and then we're going to flip this to get the reciprocal. All right, so the reciprocal is when the numerator and the denominator literally switch places. So what you're going to kind of see me say is keep, change, flip. All right, so you keep the first part, you're changing it to multiplication because you're multiplying by the reciprocal, which is where you flip it. All right, so we're going to keep the x squared plus 3x minus 10 over x squared minus 2x minus 15, but we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is x squared plus 6x plus 9 over x squared plus x minus 6. All right, so now that we've done that, we're not flipping anything else. We're just going to treat it just like the problems that we just did on the other video and the other practice, and we're going to factor everything that can be factored and then see what can cancel out. So if we factor this numerator, we're going to have x plus 5 and x minus 2 over the denominator would be x minus 5 and x plus 3. And when we factor this numerator, 3 times 3 gives me 9 and adds together to give me 6. So I'm going to have x plus 3 and x plus 3. The denominator, I would have an x plus 3 and an x minus 2. Because 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and 3 plus negative 2 gives me the positive one I need in the middle. So I'm kind of doing the factoring a little bit quicker. So you definitely need to know how to factor pretty well in order to be successful in this part of the unit. So now we're going to start canceling some things out. So let's see. My x plus 3 cancels out here. So remember, you can only cancel out pairs, but one of them has to be in the numerator, one has to be in the denominator. Let's see. X plus 3 here cancels out. X minus 2 cancels out. And these don't cancel because one's positive and one's negative. So my answer is x plus 5 over x minus 5. All right. And my extraneous solution would be positive 5 because that's what would make that denominator 0. All right, so with number 8, we're going to keep, change, flip. All right, because we're going to keep the first part, and then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So we end up with 8 over x plus 5. Now the x plus 5's cancel, leaving me with 8 over 2x, which reduces to 4 over x. My extraneous solution is 0. So x cannot equal 0. Number 9, we're going to keep, change, flip. All right, so I'm going to keep the m squared over the m plus 5, but we're multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to have m squared plus 10m plus 25 in the numerator, and then m squared plus 5m in the denominator. So now that I've done keep, change it to multiplication, flip it, which is multiplying by the reciprocal, we're going to factor. So on this left side, nothing factors out, right? So that stays the same. But on the right side, we can multiply 5 and 5 because those also add together to give me 10. So m plus 5, m plus 5. In the denominator, I have a GCF because they both have an m in common. So if I divide out an m, that leaves me with m. If I divide out an m here, that leaves me with a plus 5. So now I'm ready to start canceling out. So m plus 5 and m plus 5 cancels. Another m plus 5 cancels, leaving me with m squared over m, which is really just m. Now on this problem, we don't have any extraneous solutions because I don't have anything in the denominator here. Okay, so I'm not worried about extraneous solutions for that portion. Number 10. We're going to keep the first part. But we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. All right, so that's where the keep, change, flip comes in. So now I'm going to factor everything that can be factored. So on this numerator, I can factor that, and I would have p plus 3 and p minus 1. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. The denominator, I'm going to have a p plus 4 and a p minus 2. And that's because 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 4 minus 2 is 2. Times p minus 2 stays the same. And then the denominator is a difference of squares. So that's going to be p plus 1 and p minus 1. So I'm ready to start canceling out. So I have a p minus 1 that cancels. I have a p minus 2 that cancels. And then nothing else cancels. So in the numerator, I'm left with p plus 3. In the denominator, I'm left with a p plus 4 and a p plus 1. So that's my simplified answer. My extraneous solutions is when I get 0 in either of these, because 0 times anything is 0, and I don't want a 0 in the denominator. So my extraneous solutions would be negative 4 and negative 1. Either of those would give me a 0 in the denominator, which is undefined. All right, so those are on page 30. I'm going to do a couple of examples on page 31. All right, so these look a little bit different, but it's just the way they look, okay? They're, instead of putting, 1 and then saying the division symbol and then doing the other one, they put them in a fraction format. So we're going to keep, change, flip, all right? And so when I keep this first part, that's x squared minus 4x over x squared minus 8x plus 16. I'm changing it to multiplication, and I'm flipping this denominator because I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. All right, so when I do that, I end up with 2x minus 8 over 12. All right, so now that we have it in a different format, it's a little bit easier to work with. So now we're ready to factor and then start simplifying. So I would factor out an x in the numerator, which leaves me with x minus 4. So that's just GCF. The denominator, I would multiply 4 and 4 to get 16. But to get a negative 8, they're going to have to both be negative. Now on the right side, I'm going to do a GCF in the numerator. So 2 times x minus 4, dividing out of 2, over 12. All right, remember I've already done the keep, change, flip, so I don't need to keep flipping it all over the place. So now I'm ready to start canceling out. So x minus 4 cancels here. Another x minus 4 cancels. And then that leaves me with x times 2 in the numerator. That's 2x. And 12 in the denominator, which would reduce to x over 6. Again, because there's not a variable in the denominator, that would not be anything undefined, so I don't have to worry about extraneous solutions. All right, so the last example is number 12. All right, so again, we're going to change our format, but we're going to do keep, change, flip. So I'm going to keep the first part. And I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, right? So these flip places. So that would give me b squared minus 9 in the numerator and b plus 2 in the denominator. Now that I've done that, I can just focus on what I have here in blue. I don't need to look back. So I'm going to go ahead and factor. So b plus 3 stays the same. The denominator would be b plus 3 times b plus 3, because 3 times 3 is 9 and adds to give me 6. The numerator here is a difference of squares, so b plus 3 and b minus 3. The denominator stays b plus 2. And so now I'm ready to cancel anything out that will cancel. So b plus 3 cancels here. B plus 3 cancels here, which leaves me with b minus 3 over b plus 2. So that is my simplified answer. My extraneous solution would be negative 2, because that would make my denominator 0. So that would be what b is not able to be. All right, so now what you need to work on is finishing up page 31. So if you haven't already done number 13 and 14 with multiplying, do that, and then also 15 and 16, which is dividing. Now, real quick reminder, you only keep change flip if it's division. If it's already multiplication, then you're already in the format you need to be, so you don't go changing anything. It's only division that you flip, and that's because you're multiplying by the reciprocal.